standing at the edge of an industrial revolution unlike any time before, close quote. Those are the words of Jenna Gwenel Avisrouet, EVP of Industrial Automation at Schneider Electric, that she spoke recently at the Innovation Summit. The biggest part of that revolution is in technologies that run our businesses and, frankly, our lives. And now, of course, we have AI and data centers transforming IT systems of companies as well. But they use massive amounts of energy, water, and are made from things like critical minerals, steel, aluminum, wires, computer chips, etc., that are, well, complicated. How can we maximize them to increase efficiencies, productivity, and the bottom line, while also reducing their energy use and environmental impact and those of our technology systems? Today, we're going to find out from the Chief Information Officer of one of the world's major companies. So put on your earbuds or turn up the volume, grab a pen and pad or tablet to take notes, and let's get started. Welcome to Electric Ladies Podcast. We share stories, insights, tips, and advice from remarkably innovative women working on the front lines of corporate responsibility, energy, sustainability, and climate-related issues. I'm your host, Joan Michelson. We talk about innovation, leadership, technologies, and careers, by the way, always giving a new perspective. Find us anywhere you like to listen to podcasts on our website, electricladiespodcast.com, and through my articles and speaking gigs as well. And please pass it on to your friends and leave us a 5-star review if you're so inclined. It helps other people find us. One more thing before we get started. If you are at an inflection point yourself, looking for support with your ESG work or your career, please reach out to me. In all the chaos swirling around us, there are also a lot of opportunities, and we don't want you to be flailing. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just put in Joan Michelson and let me know. We can help you no matter what industry you're in. You know, when a lot of us think about infrastructure, we think about roads and bridges, but information technology systems, computers, networks, routers, etc., are the infrastructure of our lives, of our businesses. And we can't, I'm talking to you now through infrastructure, right? I mean, it's as normal as turning on the lights or turning on the water, right? We can't run our businesses without them, yet they become more and more complicated every day, especially with things like artificial intelligence, AI, computer chips, data centers, etc., and all of which seems to get updated daily. And they coordinate with each other and with far-flung teams and with clients, while also diligently protecting data security. I mean, it's nuts, right? These systems can also reduce the carbon footprint of our businesses, though. And so we have to reduce their energy and water and natural resources use and then how much CO2 they emit. But how can we do this? How can we maximize our RT systems across all of this and increase productivity and the bottom line? Let's ask a woman who leads IT systems at one of the world's largest infrastructure and IT companies in the world. I'd like you to meet Elizabeth Hackenson, Chief Information Officer of the aforementioned Schneider Electric, a $44 billion with a B multinational corporation that specializes in energy management and automation solutions. Schneider Electric focuses on improving energy efficiency, sustainability, and digital transformation across various industries, including buildings, data centers, infrastructure, and manufacturing. I've had a few people from Schneider Electric on, actually, which is great fun in all different parts. Elizabeth's portfolio includes delivering global digital solutions to all of their 150,000 employees worldwide in sales, supply chain, finance, HR, and R&D. I can think she doesn't sleep, but that's okay. Elizabeth has been at Schneider Electric for about 8 years, and before that was CIO and Senior VP of Technology and Services at the AES Corporation for several years. And before that, she was Senior VP and CIO at Alcatel-Lucent and MCI. You can see why I wanted to talk to her about this. She's been honored with a ton of recognitions. We'd be here for a week if I listed them all. But suffice it to say, she was ranked number 9 of 100 top technology women in 2025, just a few months ago. In 2021, she was named CIO of the Year in Boston. That's cool. She's also been ranked one of the 200 female executives by the Washington Post, my neck of the woods. And I could go on, but I won't. Interestingly, she's even an engineer. Elizabeth earned her degree in applied sciences from Farmingdale State College of New York, attended trainings at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and AI for Business and Information Sciences, and leadership programs at INSEAD. I had the privilege of meeting Elizabeth a few months ago at the Innovation Summit that Schneider Electric produced in Las Vegas. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Hackenson to Electric Ladies Podcast. Welcome, Elizabeth. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, Joan. Nice to see you too.
Thank you. So, let's start off with setting the stage a little bit. Talk about your portfolio more specifically and what a day in the life of Elizabeth as CIO looks like these days. I'm serious. I think you don't sleep. I mean, I don't see how you could with operations all over the world, but go ahead.
Well, the good news is I do sleep, and I think sleep is very important. And I'm one of those people who loves 8 hours. And if I can get 9, it's a big bonus because, it does refresh me. Obviously, it makes me better, right, to perform during the day. But you are right. We are a global organization. My team has to provide services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are always open somewhere in the world serving our customers. And so I have the privilege of leading a really outstanding team. In the 8 years that I've been here, we have evolved over that time. And we have people who are available at all hours, meaning we follow the sun time zone. So I have leaders who report to me out of China, India, Saudi Arabia, Europe, and the US. So they also get to sleep at night, but we do hand off to each other with our operational teams. And then obviously, if there's something that occurs that needs senior leadership and it's 2 o'clock in the morning for me, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon for my regional CIO in China, he takes the ball on that. So we are a very well integrated team that looks to back each other up. So most of the time when it comes to operational issues, we contain those well, and very little gets to my level, thank goodness. But a day in the life, I laugh because I do wake up early. It's between 5:30 and 6, and I'm one of those people, whether we like it or not, in my household, my work phone is right on my nightstand. And that is the first thing I do is look at the inbound from Asia and Europe, and that pretty much sets the tone for the day, whether or not I've been given some challenges to work on or we have an issue. But unfortunately, that does drive my day. So it will either impact meetings I already have or I can keep my schedule. But for the most part, we try to minimize any of those big interruptions. But I also spend my day on strategic topics or an initiative that we want to move forward that we have not, let's say, industrialized yet. So one of the topics I'm working on with my team is how do we use AI for IT? We've talked about it. We didn't get a lot of traction. So now that's a good example of where I will look to marshal people across the organization and have routine check-ins to see how are we doing, how do we move this forward, what are the roadblocks. So at any moment in time, I probably have anywhere from 5 to 10 topics that I'm trying to drive in the organization that just haven't gotten that traction yet. But I also let go. So when we do get traction, for example, cybersecurity, we have been focused on this for many, many years. And in the early days when I arrived, I was spending a lot of time on cybersecurity. And it was until we could build the organization, we could build the infrastructure around how do we want to secure the company. And so now I still pay attention to it, obviously, but I've let go of maybe the micromanagement leadership that I needed to support. And I really like that. I'm the type of person that once we get something moving and we have the organization in place and we can industrialize it, I love to go on to the next area of interest or concern or strategy that we need to drive forward.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for that. And I think a lot of senior executives should model your strategy there of not having to wake you up at 2:30 in the morning when they can go to the person who's already awake in Europe.
Mhm.
And I too am a sleep person, by the way. But I'm interested in this, and I was going to ask you obviously about cyber, but I'm this is so interesting that you have figured out how to prioritize what you really need to spend your time on. It sounds like your attention units, if you will. And that, well, a lot of executives have issues with letting go. I mean, I've done stories on this actually, the art of delegating, right? It's like hire good people and let them do their job. And people want that. They don't want you breathing down their back at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, I saw this.
Mhm.
Did you handle it?
Mhm.
It's like, it's almost insulting, right? So, is there, not to digress too much, but is there a methodology or is it an intuition of how you decide when it's time to just delegate it and be available if they need you or a crisis develops? I mean, your IT people do a lot of measuring. So do you have some kind of metric or do you have some kind of um, criteria for when you just delegate and move on?
Well, the first word I would use is trust.
Mhm.
It's having trust in the individual or the team that they could actually do what you've asked them to do, right? They have the expertise, the learning, and then if you see them delivering, you can, that's what I do. I'll back off and say, call me when you need me, or if you have an issue. So I think that's a critical element for me is, do I have a trust uh, in the individual and the team by me just asking questions, right? How many answers do they have to the questions? Are they thoughtful? Are they thinking ahead? Do I need to stay close a little while longer? But then I've also accepted that you also have to let people fail a bit, because that's the greatest learning. Again, there, I temper it with, okay, can this particular project take a failure or two and we let that happen, or no, it's too important, can't got to prevent any kind of failure. So I categorize in two different pillars, so to say, and then decide where I need to stay super close, because we really can't have any failures, or I kind of extend the string, right? Kind of like raising my son, right? That taught me a lot, especially in the teenage years. How tight do you keep a string around his ankle and versus letting go?
That and how do you close your eyes and squint and go when he falls down and needs to get up on figure out how to get up on his own, right? Because you're not
Mhm.
going to be there in every
Right.
situation. So how do you juggle so many competing priorities and technologies that are upgrading so constantly? How do you determine how soon to upgrade? I mean, I get, updates on my phone even almost daily, which is really annoying. But I can imagine with the complexity of Schneider Electric's global systems that you could be upgrading or whatever every minute of every hour of every day somewhere. But you have to prioritize, right? So how do you prioritize yourself, competing priorities and technologies, and in helping your team with these strategic topics that you're talking about to prioritize because you want them involved in the long-term stuff too, I imagine.
Right. I mean, some of it is being close to the stakeholders, and honestly, the gentleman, Peter Recusser, who I work for, to understand what's top of mind for them, what programs are more important than others. So I'm always with my antennas out to understand who are we working this particular topic for, right? And how important it is to them. I'm fortunate enough over the years that I can juggle quite a bit. It's just, I don't know if it's something I've developed, but and I actually like that. I can pivot from one topic to another relatively quickly. But then I also know when I'm hitting that peak and something needs to fall off my plate. But I have to be deliberate about it. I notice when I maybe do get stressed, I say to myself, okay, I have too much going on. I have to reset. So that doesn't necessarily come natural to me. I have to realize I've hit the stress point and pare it down. And sometimes those are very difficult decisions to actually stop something. And in some cases, I would even maybe call a couple of my direct reports and say, look, I need you to take this from me if you can, because I have something else. Or I've even once or twice with Peter, my leader, have had to say to him, look, I've got X amount on my plate. Here's something else coming. I'm going to have to jiggle this around. I'll take it, but here's two other things I might be delayed, 2 months. And that, when I first time I did that, it takes a lot for me to say that because I don't want to ever say no, right, to him. But like any great leader, he goes, okay, it's fine. So that's something I also try to share with people because sometimes I think you have this tendency that you don't want to say no, and you don't realize that people are okay if you have to say no to something for a short period of time. It's not the end of the world. Don't stress over it.
And I think actually, almost to the contrary, it helps you, to use your word, build trust because you're saying to them, I want to meet my commitments, and I can't meet my commitments from A, B, C, and D that's already on my plate if I take on, F, G, and H, but I'd love to do it. So, if that way people are straight rather than stressing yourself out or risking dropping the ball. I mean, as you said, there are areas of your work that failure is not an option, to quote Susan B. Anthony, right? So you have to, I think it actually builds trust, and I think it's also good for teams, right? I mean, I did that recently. I'm working on a book, and so it's like I still only have 24 hours in a day, last I checked. So I've had, I've like rejuggled my own portfolio to accommodate that time and the research that's required to do a good job, right? So we all have to restructure our relative portfolios, whatever they are. And when we communicate about it, then people trust you, people know that it's going to be reliable, and it manages expectations, I guess, is also what I want to say about that.
Yeah.
To that end, one of the things that you talked about when we met in Las Vegas that intrigued me was you talked about this concept of power couple managing the IT in the business units. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier in, the handoff over time zones. But talk a little bit about that for a minute and that concept, because I think that's really, again, it's a place of building trust. It's a place of also honoring other people's expertise. It's like, well, Peter, you do this better than I do, or, Sam, you're really good at this. Can you so talk about the power couple concept and how you do it and how it's working for you, where it particularly is beneficial.
It started because when Schneider began to invest in the digital transformation, traditionally, IT would get significant budgets and then, okay, go and build a new ERP or HR or finance or sales system. And in the past, it was IT people doing this, but we realized early on with our digital transformation that really what we're trying to do is digitize processes. And so we stepped back and we said, well, we don't want to digitize what we already have. We really want to transform. But the people that own these business processes are stakeholders. They're in sales, they're in operations, they're in HR, finance, supply chain. So we needed them before we could get started on digitally architecting a solution. So the notion of a power couple came to be, and it was actually Peter who came up with this idea, where we take a senior leader from a function in ops or a business unit and ask them to be the business process leader. Like, you own that business process that you want to transform, and we match you to an IT leader who's also quite senior. So these are VP, SVP roles, and they're the power couple. So we ask the domain leader on the stakeholder or business side, you define the what and the why. So what is it that you need and why? That's the value part of it. Then we, in Schneider, the other half of the power couple, we will determine the how and the when. And the how is the technology, the architecture, and the when is the schedule. So we've been in this model now for about 5 years. It's very successful. We actually started with the 5 or 6 big digital transformation programs. But then what we found was it started to migrate into the organization. So the levels of power couples now are below the senior roles. And that just happened organically. We didn't intend for it to happen. It's not like a goal we had, but people are really proud to say that they're a power couple with another individual, because I also feel that it brings together, because these are some very large programs. So it's not just one person with all the responsibility and accountability. They're a team. They're a partnership.
That's great. Thank you. And I think on top of that, I mean, it makes bloody sense, to be honest with you. I mean, it's like why people do focus groups or people do market research. I mean, you need to have the end user, if you will, involved in whatever you're creating. And that way you also have shared responsibility and they can bring in, I mean, it's also leveraging, right?
Right.
Leveraging their talent, leveraging their team. And frankly, I'm an innovation freak, so I find that people love innovating and doing new projects, and it kind of keeps their juices flowing
Mhm.
a little bit and helps them use a few different brain cells than maybe they do during the day, you know. It's interesting. I have a client in my coaching practice that I'm working with that's going through this in her company now and creating a whole new thing, which is it's really fun. People love doing that, right? Even if it's just a side project of their normal portfolio. Um, as I said in my intro, IT systems, especially today when the portfolio includes data centers and AI, robotics, on top of the usual suspects, can dramatically increase a company's energy use, water use, carbon footprint, et cetera. Ernst and Young EY issued a report a couple of years ago about what they called green IT, and how it boosts productivity and the bottom line while also reducing the company's environmental impact. And I know you and I spoke about this in the Innovation Summit, but I know from the other executives I've talked to as well that sustainability is a big value, a priority for Schneider Electric. Um, Presentation by EY, though, you were featured, Elizabeth Hackenson, talking about Schneider's 4-pillar approach to green IT. So can you tell us a little bit exactly like what green IT is and how your 4-pillar approach works?
So what we're focused on from an IT perspective within the enterprise, so my organization is, we wanted to start to pay attention to our energy consumption, because for how many years or decades I've been in IT, we've never really cared because we've never received an energy bill. Usually that electric bill is masked within maybe a facilities organization and never parsed out to us. So about 5 or 6 years ago, when our company went forward with the group level sustainability plan, we wanted to be part of it because we knew that we had, and we still do today, probably a couple of 100,000 IT assets that are plugged in, right, to electricity. And we all take that for granted. Everything stays plugged in. We consume resources. We don't really understand the storage requirements. We like to keep data forever, but that means it's on a piece of equipment that is consuming energy. So we wanted to take a look at what did we believe could be an aspect of these IT assets to try to get our arms around energy consumption. And we decided it was going to be servers. We were already moving to the cloud, but we had tens of thousands of servers. So we wanted to start, as we moved to the cloud, clean things up. So not just move all the data we had from point A to B, because all that would mean is we're squeezing the balloon. We're putting the energy onto someone else. So we had a large effort to reduce servers, and now we're going through other parts of the network to see what could we basically unplug. We're also trying to educate the employees on, every email you send is taking up electrodes and everything you store. So a lot of it is in education. We also partnered with one of our product teams, and we started to use their products for EcoStruxure IT. And that's where we could put our monitoring tools in some of the server rooms. These are, some people call them like mini data centers, but where we have to keep equipment close to our factories or in our factories, in our distribution centers, in some big office locations, so we could monitor the health of that equipment. Because another thing that happens, which a lot of people don't realize, but when an asset is in distress, even a laptop, when you feel it's getting warm, this can happen to a switch, a router, etc. That's not good, and it's consuming even more energy. So our products with Schneider, so we drink our own champagne in this space, we're able to get very early signs or triggers that an IT asset is in distress, and we could deal with it quickly and not have it consume more energy than it needs to. So I would say that our efforts in green IT will continue as we use not only our own products, but also introduce AI. So we want to try to use AI to predict that an IT asset may be in distress in the near future, be able to resolve that sooner rather than later. Because also if an asset is too far in distress, it can cause an outage, because some of these assets are in the critical path. So it's an evolution for us, and every year we try to think of something new that we could do to contribute to the reduction of CO2.
Thank you. That's really helpful. When you talk about using AI to help reduce your own footprint, and it makes mistakes. So how do you, and I guess, I mean, this could apply to any aspect of what you're using AI for, but how do you manage that potential? I mean, do you have, and what kind of systems do you have in place to see the errors, correct the errors, um, monitor what might be an error? Because especially with the magnitude of what you're dealing with, if there's a tiny mistake over here in one data point of the AI processing, what it spit out, if you will, that's going to trickle through and contaminate the whole rest of the system. So it's not just one tiny little thing. It's like, well, if I put a little bit of mercury in somebody's water, it's not just that drop, it's contaminating the whole thing, right? So how do you manage for AI's capacity to make mistakes?
Well, we have a team here. We have a chief AI officer, and so he runs our AI hub. And he's probably best to speak to this, but in me working with him and learning from him, we have to constantly train the models. So if we do see a hallucination, which is what I believe you're getting at, it's important to know that, and then we have to go back, and this is where we start to fine-tune models. Now, what's interesting is some of the models are, obviously learning on their own as well, right? especially if there's a user interface. So that is, again, a constant. And as AI evolves itself, it will continue to get better at being more accurate. I don't know that there'll ever be a day where there's no hallucinations, but certainly there's been a lot of advancements, and we monitor that carefully.
Oh, good. One of the other things, just want to ask you a couple things and then get some career advice from you for mid-career women. But I want to talk about measuring effectiveness and combine that a little bit with reporting because you have to, Schneider Electric is a publicly traded company, global company, and you have to do a lot of reporting, especially because you're based in Europe. So how do you track what kind of, I mean, without, sharing anything obviously confidential, but what kind of system, do you have to have your own ERP, right? To manage, to be able to track your footprint, your impact, your transition plan. A lot of what you've described to me, I'm sure has metrics associated with it that have to be reported somewhere. How does that work? And does that, I mean, I would imagine that when you look at that report, the reports from that you see things like you said, we didn't get an electric bill, so we didn't know our use. Now you're getting an electric bill, right? So you're getting all this reporting, how that affects your decision making.
Well, let me maybe take it up to the macro level. So as you said, as a
Oh,
European company, we had to file our first CSRD report last March. And in those reports is an enormous amount of information based upon our ESG plan. And so this data came from, in many cases, lots of systems that we have here in the company, whether it be from supply chain, our ERPs, our product teams. And so all of that was assembled into a data warehouse. And then there's another product that we have called Resource Advisor that we pushed it all into Resource Advisor so that things could get correlated. And then we finally went into a reporting tool. So that was a huge undertaking. And actually, I spent a year in it would have been 2024. That was one of those big projects trying to assemble all that data, but it was operationalized in February of last year. And then obviously walk away, and now we just hit a button to get that report. But the kind of information that you were asking me specifically on the IT assets, we're getting that information through the EcoStruxure IT platform. So any of the assets that we have in our critical server rooms that are connected to that IT advisor, that's where my team gets to see the energy consumption. We still don't get to see the energy bill because that is still at a facilities level at a factory in the Philippines or who knows where else. But we get to see the consumption, and that's what we monitor.
oh, that's great. That's really helpful. And then you can adjust, you can know where you are on the continuum of what you're
Correct.
trying to achieve,
Right,
right?
right. Like, and we'll see if we're, and actually it'll be an alarm if we set a threshold, and if we see that energy consumption is increasing, that'll be an alarm to one of my folks to, what is happening. We'll dive deeper into what is the issue.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Um, I want to ask you one other thing and then get some career advice from you, although I could talk to you about this stuff for about a week, which I'll resist doing. But you talked about how your department and is global and you're working to reduce the carbon footprint of Schneider Electric systems themselves. But we live in a polarized time where people are there's language that gets people upset one way or another, right? And you have, I'm sure, teams across the political as well as the geographical spectrum. So when you talk to your teams about managing IT systems with the goal of reducing their carbon footprint, or I mean, how do you, as well as increasing efficiency and profitability and productivity, but how do you talk about it? Like what language works to reach people and motivate, mobilize, incentivize people to do this. Besides, the simple fact of keeping your job. But I mean, I would imagine that there's a risk of people being a little passive aggressive if they're not into it, whatever. But how do you talk about it? Do you care? Do you pay any attention to that concern, or how do you deal with that? I'm just curious at what we
Yeah.
could all learn from what's working for you.
It's not really an issue at all because it's been in the DNA of our company for quite some time now. And uh, we also engage the people that could actually do something about it, right? And what I love is what we have in the IT organization now is it's more people coming to us with ideas of how to make us greener. So we don't really face the skepticism or not interested. It's such a part of who we are as a company, and recognize that all of this technology is great, but it's also consuming an enormous amount of electricity. And when we think about AI and all the data centers, it is not going to be enough electricity. So we're really passionate about efficiency is the only way as a society we're going to be able to take advantage of all of this technology and bring more tech to people around the world. So I might not be the best one to answer that question because it's just not something we don't face any of that adversity internally.
Right. And I think to your point is really, I mean, the point that's underneath what you're saying, which I think I just want to pull out, is it's already in the ethos of the company. And
Mhm.
so people who want to come to work for Schneider Electric are already going to be, if you will, pre-screened to at least on some level, if not share that value, respect it, and
Mhm.
know that that's kind of going to be part of their job description, if you will, in one small way or another. And so having it be integrated into the culture
Mhm.
has really made it probably more efficient for you to do this work because you don't have to deal with the attitude problem,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And people are just focused on finding the solution and they don't have attention units spent over here on something else, right? So I think that's really that's the insight for me from that is the cultural piece. So thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. Um, as I said, I could talk to you about this stuff for ages. I'm an infrastructure freak, as you know. But I like to close with getting some career advice for mid-career women. And you're so interesting to talk to for about this because you've been in other big companies and you've climbed the proverbial ladder. And you've done it in a pretty unusual way, right? So, I mean, in my point of view, anyway. Um, so think about a woman who has maybe 15 years of experience. She has an education. She knows what she's good at. She wants to excel and advance in her career and make more money. And she also wants to make a difference and doesn't feel like there should be a trade-off. What advice would you give to her?
Well, first, you have to find a company that um, is interesting to you, right? And what you want to do. And then to me, it's always about focus on delivering what you've been asked to and what you can do. Um, and and then opportunity, in my view, opens up. Now, sometimes it's at the company you're at, and other times it's not, and that's okay. I I've been at a number of companies in my career, some especially early on, 2 to 3 years, and then in the past couple of years, it's been more 8 to 10 years. But I do think it's important when you're at that 15-year mark, you should have by then figured out what you like, what your interests are, and where you want to go next. And you've got to take control of your destiny. And again, I think getting to a company that you believe in, you have the same values, can give you that pathway to whatever it is you're looking for is where to start and then deliver.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Was there any, like, how did you know when it was time to take the next gig? Was it matter of looking at the next rung up the ladder, if you will, all the time, or was it Like, how did you discern because the tricky part with discerning the values of a company is when you're not on the inside yet, you're only at the mercy of publicly available information. And that's usually what the company wants everybody to think instead of I mean, I've worked in giant companies myself. So been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? So sometimes the culture doesn't match what they say, or the culture of your division doesn't match what they say about the whole company. So how can people identify what the values are of a company before they decide that they want to work there?
Well, as I think back on all my the companies I worked for, except for one, I knew people at the other company.
Mm.
So especially early in my career, I learned how to network. And I think that was kind of natural because it was before the internet. So you went to these big user conferences. And so I just loved meeting people from other companies. And that's how I usually moved was early in my career. There's only so many positions, right? Like, and it was a time when your age mattered. Like if you were 24, maybe you wanted a job. Oh, there's 6 people ahead of you, waiting for that job. So that's when I would move because another company had those openings. But I always knew someone at that company, and you would just ask a lot of the questions that maybe you wouldn't ask in an interview because you haven't even gotten to the interview, right? You're just networking. Oh, what's your company like? What do you like about your company? What are the values? So that was easy for me to move. And in most cases, it wasn't even a headhunter. It was just through the networking, which to me has always been really good because it's like you have that insider track already to know what the
You can
company's
do that
like.
now. Yeah, exactly. And you can do that now through LinkedIn or going to
Mhm.
conferences
Right,
now too.
right.
I actually have a training called How to Maximize a Conference because I've seen so many people who don't know how to do that. And then they come back and they go, well, I've got these people that I collected, either their business cards or on LinkedIn, and I don't know who they are. And like, what, like, so what do you do with it now, right? It's a great way to follow up. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Any final thoughts before I let you get back to your life?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. Schneider's a great company. I'm really happy to be here, especially given that I have a choice, and really appreciate, again, spending time with you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Electric Ladies podcast. Elizabeth Hackenson, Chief Information Officer of Schneider Electric. So we can reduce the carbon impact of today's highly complex IT systems. What did Elizabeth say that resonated with you? Post it to us on LinkedIn, tagging me at Joan Michelson. Send us any questions there as well. Tell us you're a listener of Electric Ladies podcast too, and you may win a complimentary 30-minute coaching session with me. I've met some wonderful people that way. And please subscribe to our mailing list to stay abreast of our amazing guests like Elizabeth, our articles and career advice. And we're going to be launching a new membership program and group coaching, so you'll find out about that. You can subscribe on our website, electricladiespodcast.com. I'm Joan Michelson. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.